too much. I'll let these guys do all the good talking because I think that's mostly what you guys want to hear. But basically, we're going to try to keep it to 45 minutes or so. And then afterwards, Kevin and Cindy have invited everyone to come by and have a pint over at Tibbs downtown by the State Theater. So basically, we'll kind of go through and let everyone get a chance to kind of introduce themselves, tell a little bit about their beer story, maybe share a little bit of their business plan and how maybe it differs from the different ones, and then beer horror stories, successes, and other things like that. There's a bunch of goodies out on the table there that I brought. The t-shirts are not free, but anything else that's made or printed on paper, feel free to grab. And as for West Michigan Beer Tours, we're about a year and change old. We do public and private tours to all the fine breweries in Southwest Michigan. I counted them up last night between Grand Haven all the way down and then over to Marshall and Dark Horse. There are about 57 or 58 breweries all told. So that's within about an hour drive in any direction. That's pretty fantastic. Last numbers I heard, 186 brewing licenses in the state of Michigan, 171 with operating hours. So you go back to about 2007, 2008, and I think we were somewhere in between 80 to 90 breweries. So that all came in the midst of a really bad economic time. So that tells you a couple things. Michigan people like beer, and the people making beer in Michigan are doing a hell of a job. So with that, I'll kind of shut up and let them take over from here. If anybody has any questions, we'll have a little time at the end to throw those darts at everybody up here. In the meantime, I guess we'll just start with introductions. We'll just go this way. We'll start with Charlie and then work our way down.
I'm Charlie Knapp from Bilbo's. You want us to talk about our operation a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, we've probably been in business about 20 years before we started brewing. Thought it would augment what we had been doing, which it has. Bought a system that makes 6 half barrels at a time, very small, pretty flexible. We can do a lot of different things. We make something that's not working real well. It doesn't take too long to move it out of there. So we've been doing it for quite a while now, but it's interesting. And we're glad we did it.
I'm Gonzo Hayner with Gonzo's Big Dog Brewing. We put this package, or our whole brewery together. It took us about 3 years to do the whole project. It took me about a year and a half to write the business plan. We'll be open almost a year. November 13th will be our first year.
He's got a tattoo to prove it.
Got several tattoos since I've worked there. We have a 15-barrel brew house with 30-barrel fermenters. Looks like we're probably going to do about almost 1,200 barrels our first year. And obviously we plan on doing a lot more, and hopefully in about 3 years from now to 5 years that we build our next full production brewery. That's at least phase 2 of the business plan. So I plan on growing much larger than what we are right now.
I'm Kevin Tibbs with the Brewing Company.
Cindy Tibbs with Tibbs Brewing.
We opened December 6th, 2013. We're right next door to the State Theater in downtown Kalamazoo. We have a 2-barrel brew system right now. We are in the midst of, we're just starting an expansion into the basement area where we're at. That should allow us, just with the additional time that we can brew, to double our production right off the bat with really no extra equipment. So our business plan was more starting very small. The word we used a lot before we opened was we wanted something manageable, because Cindy and I did not come from the restaurant or brewing industry. I was a construction worker before this. Cindy works for the federal government. We don't want to get into, we don't have the experience where we were comfortable with a 100-seat restaurant or anything like that initially. So, yeah, and as Charlie said, it's nice having, one nice thing about the small system is if we do something that we don't like, it's gone pretty quickly. We can try something else. So. Yeah.
I'm Brian Pierce from Bright Eyes Brewing Company. We're not open yet, but we're going to be open on over at South Burdick and Crosstown. Used to be a Rena Center. Going to be a little bit different. We're going to be a full coffee house and a microbrewery, trying to bring those two worlds together. find a place around really where we could both hang out and enjoy ourselves, so we wanted to kind of start something like that. And it'll be more of a, art-centric place. We'll participate in all the art hops. We'll have a little general store that has local craft people's stuff for sale in it also. So we're just kind of trying to bring a lot of creativity in Kalamazoo, under one roof. Kind of our goal.
And one of the cool things here, especially with our last 3 different breweries here, since October, downtown Kalamazoo, and you guys aren't that far away from downtown Kalamazoo, but downtown Kalamazoo has had 5 breweries open since last October, so in about 12 months, and about to get a 6th here in just a few more months. So,
Yeah.
Again, that speaks to some of the growth that we're seeing. So I guess one of the things that some people may want to hear is a little bit on how you got started into brewing. So maybe if you can kind of be a Cliff Note version of your introduction to beer world and what made you decide to keep doing it. Yeah, we'll just keep going in order.
We decided that it might be a good idea to add brewing to what we'd been doing, so we researched where we could purchase a system and found this, actually bought this system in Toronto, and went there and got instruction where they were not only doing these systems, but they were also had places where individuals could go in and make beer. They go through the process, get the beer ready, then as it sat and fermented, they'd come back, whatever time it was to come back and bottle their own stuff. They had all the equipment there to do it. So they could make labels, their own label, John's beer, and take it home, just like you might do at home, but they had stores doing it. Anyway, they had a lot of information, a lot of instruction we could get. We did that way, and basically got taught how to do it. And there are a lot of, there's a lot of chemistry. It can be anyway, if you want it to be, but there's a lot of simplicity in it, and there's some basics, so you can learn the basics pretty quickly and take it from there.
I started out, I worked at Upjohn. My supervisor, her husband brewed beer, so I went over there for dinner a couple times. And he showed me how to brew a couple batches. I thought it was kind of fun, so I thought this is probably a pretty good way to make high gravity beer or high alcohol beer for myself. So while I worked at Upjohn's, I did a few 5-gallon batches, then ended up making a 12-gallon batch system for myself. And then in '95, got a degree at Siebel in brewing, and brewed quite a few batches on the 12-gallon system. And then started at Old Peninsula as a brewmaster in '96 and worked there 8 years. While I worked there, I built a 30-gallon system for home, and so I brewed on that probably for 15 years or more. And then left Old Peninsula, worked at Calsec, and ran their research brewery for 8 years. And when I left there, I got offered the opportunity to open up Kansas Big Dog, and that's where I'm at now.
I started, I guess it was 6 years ago. Cindy has 6 brothers and sisters, so for Christmas it was getting expensive buying everybody and their significant others Christmas presents. So one year they decided that you had to make make something, make a Christmas present. So everybody else made cookies and brownies, and I bought a little Mr. Beer kit and gave them some god-awful beer that week. But it got me very interested in the process. Just I have somewhat of a, I guess, addictive personality, or that's the right way to put it. I get focused on something and I want to do it the best I can. So I'm very interested in brewing beer. And yeah, so that from that little Mr. Beer kit, $50. You end up dropping our whole life savings and opening a brewery.
Are you having fun?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
My wife and I were out Christmas shopping and happened to gesture at a stack out of Mr. Beer kits to her and said, well, that's what you can get me for Christmas. And she went back and got it. I didn't know. And made some terrible beer with it. It was horrible. But some friends at work said, hey, I don't know if you know, but Bell's general store has a homebrew shop in there, and they're really knowledgeable. You should go check it out. So I did, and luckily David Curtis, the manager, still worked the floor at the time. And right away we started talking, and he kind of took me under his wing, and he's showing me all the stuff I could buy. And I said, oh, let me make sure I like this. And he's like, I can tell by the questions you're asking, you're gonna like it. And I did. I loved it. And kind of like Kevin, got all nerdy about it and had to make, you know, the right system to control all the variables and be able to make repeatable batches, and started fine-tuning recipes and stuff. And can't just leave well enough alone, so it had to turn into a brewery and a coffee house. Kind of where we're at now.
I want to do it again, but how many home brewers do we have in here? Anybody have a quick question for everybody before we continue on, or keep plowing through, you know?
At Bilbo's, do you use all grain or is it extract?
Both, some all grains and some with some extract.
Okay. How have you been working since Jackson left?
Oh, we're certainly doing fine. We miss Jackson. Jackson was around for a long time, and I understand he's doing well.
Oh, yeah, I used to work with him, did some craft work.
Oh, yeah?
He's doing okay, yeah, he gets one.
Yeah, we're real happy for him. He's a good guy. I wish we still had him
He is.
around.
Well, I thought maybe one thing that might be interesting, we had one home brewer who was talking about opening a brewery in Brewers, right? What was your name? John. John? GOE, Jen, or? Oh, all right, we'll talk about that later. Can you guys talk a little bit about how you sort of went about developing what you're going to do or what you are doing? Because everybody kind of has a little different setup. Maybe you could start, Gonzo, and talk about the size, scope, and maybe the distribution element to all that and where it fits in, and then we'll throw it over to
When I worked at Old Peninsula, that was a 7-barrel brew house. And so I decided that that wasn't going to be big enough for me to do distribution unless you have a tremendous amount of 14-barrel fermenters and a lot of kegs. So I actually wanted to get a 30-barrel brew house, but my pockets and my investors' pockets weren't quite deep enough. But the 15-barrel's been really good, and what I did was got 30-barrel fermenters so we can do double batches. And actually, I didn't think we'd do any double batches our first year, and we've been doing double batches of the vanilla porter for the last 2.5 months just to keep up with production. So with the distribution thing, you have to be extremely patient. The distribution thing is very slow. And I do a lot of sales myself, besides the distribution company, just to get out, because I'm pretty proactive and I want to get our beers out to the market as fast as possible. So with distribution, I do a lot of sales, and it's just, distribution's a tough call. It's there's not that much shelf space in stores, and there's a lot of breweries now. So for me, being a larger brewery, you got to meet the right people. You got to have the right kind of beer that they want to put on the shelf for you, and with restaurants and bars too, you got to have some pretty signature beers to be able to have the bar want to take you, to consider you, with Bell's and Founders and Greenbush and Shorts and all these other people that have been around for a long time that have great beers, and now you're competing to get your beer in with those guys. So being a new brewery on the block, not that I've brewed for 22 years in Kalamazoo, but still I'm putting out a new product that nobody's had for yet. I think that's a huge challenge for me. So I try to get out as much as I can to do sales and try to promote our stuff as much as possible.
So we have a little bit of the opposite problem, and just to kind of clarify, Kevin does all the brewing, and he's our expert at that. And I get all the paperwork
That's
and
on
all the
camera, right?
accounting. Yeah, I get all the fun legal reading through. Yeah, I get that fun stuff. So we have a little bit of the opposite problem of Gonzo. He's able to produce 15 barrels at a time, and we produce 2. So to date, even keeping up with the demand of people coming into the brewery and trying to order beer has been nearly impossible. We would to have a lot of beers on tap, at least in our own brewery. Getting it out the door for distribution is just not our reality right now. But down the road, it will be amazing with the new change in the law here in Michigan for self-distribution, so that we don't have to go through a third-tier distributor. So in other words, we don't have to sell our beer to somebody else, the middleman who's then going to turn around and sell it to the restaurant or the store for distribution. We can go right to the local restaurant and say, hey, can you put our beer on tap? And they can do that now, which is a huge change. It's going to really, really help across the board with all the new breweries opening. But like I said, we're struggling just to keep up with demand at our location. So once we do the expansion and are able to start brewing in the basement, that's our hope would be that we'd be able to start distributing to a few local small restaurants and things along those lines.
Look at it more as a marketing thing for us, putting it
Right.
out in a few restaurants or something that might see it and come into our, that's what we're trying to do.
So when do you guys going to expand them?
Well, we are working on that right now. We had a meeting on that earlier this week, and it looks like we may be seeing on it in the next 30 days or so.
Do you want to describe the space where it is for people?
I
who
guess we
maybe
can do a little age check here. Buddy, know where Keggers used to be?
You don't have to raise your hand.
It
Just
is
wink
the-
and go like
Yeah,
that.
it is the basement area of the State Theater. It runs, yeah, it was Zombie Club at one time, yep, Club Liquid, so it's basically, it's a full bar, restaurant down there that, the stuff, they just turned the lights off maybe 10 years ago, and left everything, so there's not much down there we're still gonna use, still has a hood, which is big for us, that's a big cost that we don't have to incur. Floor drains, which I found out really quickly how important those are when you're brewing beer. I don't have them right now upstairs. The mont's my best friend right now, but, yeah, it's just, it's below ground level. It's, the State Theater seating actually runs down like this, and the basement runs, L-shaped around it. They're letting us take, it's actually 7,000 square feet down there. They're letting us section it off to about 1,700 square feet, which gives us the part we want. We're hoping in about 6 months. Initially, we'll only brew down there. We're hoping in about 6 months we could open up additional seating, because there already is a full bar down there. Probably, we haven't talked to the fire marshal. I think capacity would be somewhere 50 to 75 more people, which would actually double our capacity.
Nearly triple, yeah.
Huge for us. Yeah, it was 75, that was triple.
You're gonna need a bigger system.
I'm gonna need a bigger system. And I'm not into that. It's that pockets thing. We sell beer so we can make money, so we can buy equipment, so we can make more beer, so we can make more money, so we can buy more equipment.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly, that's exactly what it is.
Well, it's worked well for you guys too with the State Theater kind of coming to life in the last couple of months and booking more and more shows than
Yeah.
I've seen them do in probably a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that works. Yeah, they've been really aggressive.
That actually put a big hit on our beers.
Oh,
Our
really?
show schedule, I was not quite ready for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got down to,
We're down to 2 beers, which we hadn't had that issue in about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
We're back up to 8 now. Yeah, because when they have their good shows, it actually definitely helps our business. And
Yeah.
bring many people right next door to us.
Brian, you want to jump in and talk? Because, I mean, you're kind of in the early stages of all this, so can you tell, I guess, talk about some of the things you're throwing
Well,
around
we
right
have a
now.
strategy for distribution as well. We're gonna start with a slightly bigger system than Tibbs went with. We're gonna go with a 3-barrel. And we're just basing it on the capacity that we have seating wise. We've got about 44 seats. So a 3-barrel with about 3 fermenters can service that. And then our next expansion would be to add in another 3 fermenters, and that would be for very limited distribution. That would be basically, like Kevin said, kind of a calling card. We can go to the festivals, we can go down to, maybe Beer Exchange or some of these guys and ask them to put a keg on tap for us. Any real large scale, like Gonzo's doing, would be an off-site distribution center for us. So we would be looking at, going out to an industrial park somewhere and setting up an additional brew house there.
Yeah, and Cindy referenced it a little earlier, some of the laws that had changed in the state of Michigan. That happened about March. That allows breweries with 1,000 barrels or less in a year can self-distribute. And then there's other things with the different size, 30,000 to 60,000 barrels can then open a second location, if you're seeing New Holland doing in Grand Rapids. But can you guys give me a sense for the growth and what you guys kind of hope to do or plan to do throughout the next couple of years, or is it drawn up that specifically for all of you guys, or is it?
well, we, initially, we didn't plan to do any expansion until after our first or second year. I think it was our second year, and we already doubled our brew capacity in our first year and are looking to expand again and find another contract, to be able to double our brewing capacity again. So we may double it twice, go from a 1 barrel to at a 3 or 4 barrel by the end of the year. So, that kind of blew everything out of the water for us. But in a good way, definitely in a good way. So,
Yeah, we're at 2 barrel system now, we'd like to go to a 4 barrel, easily done with what we have, it's cheap. And eventually we'd like to get to a 7 to 10 barrel system, if we stay on site where we're at now, if I can fit it down the basement doors, is basically what it comes down to. If not, it would be the same thing that Brian said, I mean, it's the offsite, you can go get an industrial park that you get for $1 a square foot or something, and you brew there as cheap as you can, and just keep our downtown location, which in my mind is a big asset for us, like you said, State Theater right there, around the corner, the high visibility corner, not quite high visibility as your guys', but pretty close. Yeah, so that's our plan.
One of the other changes that came along, I think right around that same time, was allowing bars to sell beer, draft beer, in growlers. I was wondering if, had an interesting conversation this afternoon with Rex Halfpenny from the Michigan Beer Guide. Obviously, they can do good things and bad things. I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about what that prospect is like for you guys and what you think of that new wrinkle in the state.
Obviously, I like selling our growlers because we sell a lot of them. The only thing I have against it is if other bars are selling growlers and they're not taking the care of making sure that the growlers are clean or their tap lines are clean. So then when my beer is at another place and somebody gets it and they get a growler of whatever place it is, and then they go home and this doesn't taste like the beer I get at Gonzo's Big Dog, I have a problem with that because I want my beer to taste the same from my place to any other place it goes to. That's the kind of quality I want my beer to go out at. If that quality can't be the same, then, there's an issue with that. I mean, if people can take care of the growlers and take care of their lines and keep the beer as fresh as possible and make it 150% great, just like I expect my place to be like, then I don't have a problem with it. And of course, they make money off that too, and probably a little bit more money than what we would make. So it does get the beer out. So I look at it as, we still get our beer out as long as the product is high quality. For me, anyway.
Yeah, for us, we have a little bit different issue again, because we are so small, we can't even keep up with the demand for people coming in and having a pint in our brewery. So growlers aren't even on our radar for right now.
With the expansion that we can offer, that's
Yeah.
where we go, but with the expansion, we can be open more days, we can offer growlers. Because growler sales, they're huge in breweries. I like taking growlers home.
Yeah.
And we're just not able to offer it now.
You get a lot of people that come in and they want you to fill their growler, and we can't. Legally, we can't. We don't have authorization from the MLCC, Michigan Liquor Control Commission, to actually fill the growler.
Can't put a growler. Sure. We get this question a lot.
I was in Decatur at Final Gravity, and I just stopped in to chat with them for a minute and bought a growler from them and asked if there was any way I could fill it too, and they said it was the same thing. They said we can't. They had just ordered a bunch of stainless. They were still trying to get their new system up because they couldn't keep up with demand in Decatur. And so I just bought an empty growler and added it to the 40-some growlers I've got in place, and I'll go back whenever they're cut up on stuff. But while we're talking about laws, are there anything that you guys would like to see coming down the line that might be something that could make life somewhat easier? Or
I think opening wise, they've changed it already, where you can now start producing beer before you're actually licensed.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been huge for us. We had another month or so after we opened, or after we got our brewing license before we were actually able to open, just because we didn't have the beer produced. And we changed that.
And then something that I don't even know if this is still ongoing or not, but at one point they were trying to pass a law saying that you couldn't use spent grain. In other words, grain that you use to make your beer. It's basically boiled like a tea, and then you have all this grain that's been mashed, and pigs love it. So what we've been doing is we've we donate it to a local pig farmer who comes, picks it up, takes it, and feeds it to his livestock. But at one point, they were trying to pass a law saying that you couldn't do that unless you spread all the grain back out, dried it yourself, repackaged it in a food-grade facility, and then you could distribute it. Well, our brewery is like the size of a third of this
God, I
room.
wish it was as big as this room.
There's no room to spread out the grain and dry it and everything, and so otherwise we would just have to throw it in the dumpster. So we felt it was really working against the brewery.
And I don't think that's been changed yet. I think they put it back to look at it.
Mhm.
I think they got such
Somebody's
pushback
reviewing
on
it,
it.
yeah.
I think that's a really good idea. As much grain as I go through a week, that'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, you know what? The pigs love it, man. They'll run across the whole field to see the trailer truck full of the spent grain, man.
All of livestock love it. My sheep sure like it.
Yeah, our farmer actually gives it to, I think he says cows eat more of it than his pigs do,
Yeah.
actually.
I was wondering if you guys would want to talk about maybe some of the misconceptions with starting your own brewery or getting into the beer world. Obviously, money rains down from the sky the minute you open
Yeah.
the door, so aside from that,
Right.
if you could, I mean, maybe take everybody behind the scenes of what the life of a brewery owner is like.
Hectic as
We
hell.
have,
No,
we have a
that's-
child here, so watch the
Yeah.
language.
It's a lot to run a business. We're almost done with our first year. It's incredibly crazy every day. I wouldn't change it for a thing. I love having my own brewery, I mean, bar none. But it is a lot. You know, I brew all the batches too, plus I'm the owner. We have 47 people at our place to take care of. Brian Hill is the other owner, partner, and he takes care of the front of the house, and it's just a lot of work for two people to handle. It really is. You need a lot of money to sustain your business. You know, and everybody thinks like us, you know, we're real busy all the time. We need to be busy all the time, because just because we're busy doesn't mean we're just loaded in cash. You know, everything costs a tremendous amount of money. And it was weird because after 2 months we were open, we sold so much beer that we had to buy 2 500-gallon serving tanks just to be able to put the beer in. So that was taken right out of our checkbook, which was nice that we made that much money for that. But now we need a 30-barrel bright tank. We need to get another walk-in cooler because of distribution. We need more kegs. All that costs about around $80,000 or $90,000, which we don't have. So we got to figure out how we're going to get that money. So I mean, it's very busy all the time, and you know, we do beer shows, we do these events that keep you busy. I brewed today, I brewed yesterday. My whole life has changed. I'm rarely home, even on the weekends. And for me, because my name's on the docket, I feel like I have to be there 7 days a week, every week, just because I want my business to run south. You know, I want to make sure that, not that there's not capable people in there that we hired to take care of it. It's just I feel like, you know, I gotta be there.
Echo everything that Gonzo
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Exactly. It may not be a 30-barrel bright tank that we're looking at, but we're looking
Looking
for
at a
a
4-barrel.
4-barrel bright tank, same thing. But,
No, yeah, and I mean, the first month we were open, I was tracking my hours and how much I was working, and after 4 straight weeks of 100+ hours a week, it was depressing to keep track of this, so I stopped. And it was hard on us too. We found out Cindy was pregnant the week after we opened, so then we just had a 2-month-old, or we have a 2-month-old now, along with our 4-year-old. So that threw a whole nother layer of complexity into everything.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, the misconceptions are that you sit back there, hey, you brew beer, you sit back there and drink beer all day for a living. And
Yeah.
I clean more toilets than I
Yes.
do kegs. You know, I mean, you're a glorified janitor. I don't know a better way to say it.
90% cleaning or something?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then also to echo what John just said, it's you're brewing beer, but you're also running a business, and the business side of things is where it's. I mean, that's Cindy's area of expertise, but the 100 hours a week I was putting in making the beer, she was working full time and putting in another, I don't know, 30
40
hours a week. You know, they,
Um,
it's a highly regulated industry, so they want their reports, they want to know
Yeah.
where everything goes.
Yeah.
We got lucky, we hired, Lauren, one of our bartenders, she's now our bar manager, so that's helped me out quite a bit. It got me away from running the bar also, so we can concentrate on producing beer more and getting home, at least Sundays now. Sundays are my no work day now.
Family day, we
Yes.
actually have a family day, and we have 3 employees aside from the two. Crazy.
I remember, I gotta say this, when we first opened, the first month or 3 or 4 weeks or whatever, Kevin came in and he goes, man, you don't look as happy anymore. It's because it was craziness. And I said, just wait till you open. You'll get it. And yeah, well, you know, and then about 3 weeks after he was open, I came in and he's at the register just going crazy. And I go, and he didn't have that smile on his face. And I go, see, what happened? He said, yep, you're right.
Yeah, because when you're building a place, it's more or less a 40, 50-hour-a-week job. You can go home at night, and yeah, once you open, it's a whole new animal.
Yep.
Yeah, we thought by opening a brewery and having our own business, that I would see more of him, because he used to travel in construction and be gone to all over the country. I think I saw more of him when he lived in a different state than I see of him now. So, yeah.
But there's a good side, like, now I'm home in the mornings, I take our daughter to preschool every day, so I get breakfast with her, and take her in every day, then I might not see her at night, but at least I see her in the morning. In my old job, I was gone for a week or 2 at a time. There's still a lot of positive sides.
The cool thing about all of us, all the new breweries in Kalamazoo, is we're all friends and we all help each other out. And it's not this huge, there's competition to a point, but there's not this huge competitiveness where you're, you know, blackballing somebody else or whatever. I think it's been very good that everybody tries to help each other out and sends, you know, he sends people to me, I send people to him to try his beers, and it's like that with all the other breweries too, because I've heard of other people, you know, Bell's sends people to me, Arcade and so forth, Boatyard and Rupert's, but that's really cool to have a community of brewers that are in Kalamazoo right now that help each other out and support each other.
So I hear a lot of people come in and, oh, what about the competition from having 6 other breweries in town? And we get so much more business because there are 5 or 6 other breweries in town. I mean, Saturdays, it's people doing beer tours, people from out of state coming in and doing their beer tasting, or staying all weekend, going to every brewery, eating at other restaurants, staying at hotels, you know, spending money in the community. So I think the more the merrier, is the way I think.
I got a question for Bill. Being I'm one of the first people to brew in Kalamazoo, it seemed like, I mean, for 20 years, but I mean, being one of the earlier to have, you know, beer that you're brewing in your restaurant, can you speak to how this sudden boom has affected what you guys are doing, and like, you can just your take on it and how you've been responding to it?
One of the nice things for us is that we can buy all these guys on tap at once. And, you know, if people are really into craft beer, it's delicious stuff. It's a lot better than it used to be. It's interesting that it's taken over a lot of the spots from national brewers. And I think a lot of them are trying to buy these people up if they can. But, you know, it's just strange. Ours is a brew pub license. These guys were talking before about some of the law problems. I don't know where they are with this right now, but the way it's been for us is we can't even take our beers to our other location. We have 2. We can't even take a keg out there and tap it ourselves. It's against the law. Liquor control laws have been really strange in the state of Michigan forever, and that's one of the strange things. Hopefully that's.
I believe that has changed.
That might
It's
change
not just
soon.
Michigan. It's not just Michigan at all, but
Well, that doesn't surprise me because it's a government thing wherever you go. But
A lot of it's prohibition holdover. It just kind of stays in the books for whatever reason.
I was wondering, some of these rules, like for a long time, you couldn't have an internally lit sign, beer sign, inside your place. Couldn't have a neon sign in my place anyway.
You can in Illinois, but not in Michigan.
I know. it was
Whoever
just-
drew those in.
What's the point of that? You can find a lot of things like that that don't make any sense. And you're getting around those things along with all the paperwork that they require, which grows and grows and grows every time you look around.
I did want to go back and just tell a quick story for 2 seconds on some of what Kevin Gonzo and Cindy were talking about. We ran a tour in the winter in December. We called it our Ugly Sweater Beer Tour, where we took people around downtown on a little trolley and encouraged them to wear ugly sweaters, and all of them did. One guy had a big fireplace iPhone thing, and it was pretty incredible. But we went to a number of the new breweries. They had all just, for the most part, been open for a few weeks because it was December, so November, October. No, you guys were November. It was
December 6th.
Rupert's was October, right? He was the first.
Right.
So it was a really bad afternoon, early evening ice storm in Grand Rapids, and we had a group of like 6 to 8 people that were going to come down from Grand Rapids to go on the tour. They called and said, we're not going to risk our lives to have some beer in Kalamazoo. We'll see you some other time. So we had a bunch of extra seats on our bus. So we went to Gonzo's first. We brought our small group in there. They gave us a tour, a bunch of beer, and whatever else. And, I jokingly said, we have a bunch of extra seats on the bus. Anybody feel like coming? Gonzo said, sure. And then he grabbed Brian. Brian said, sure. Then you grabbed your wife. She said, sure. So they all jumped on the bus and we went over to Tibbs' place. We got over there, had a couple pints, and I jokingly said to Kevin, we're heading over to Boatyard. We've got a couple extra seats over in the bus. You feel like coming? He said, sure. Turned the keys over to serve for a minute, and then everybody ran over to Boatyard and had some more samples there, and basically talked about, because I believe at that time, Boatyard had just received some of their new equipment that you helped them piece together when they couldn't quite figure out what all of it meant, whatever else. So it's it's not lip service that everybody's saying these kind of things. It's real, and you see it all the time. So that was just one of my favorite examples of watching it
And
kind
that
of
was the first time I got out
unfold.
of that place.
Was it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a fun night because of the handful of people that were on the bus. Got to meet all these brewers in like the most unique environment imaginable, just kind of touring around, going from place to place, and everybody joking about being little brothers and big brothers and whatever else it was. So anyway, so for what it's worth, that was a pretty fun evening.
I love getting on the bus.
It was a good one.
I've gotten on it more than once. I tend to get on it a lot for some reason. I don't know why.
You had your daughter's winter hat on, like some leopard print something.
Oh
or
yeah, I had a
over
leopard
the
hat
top of
on
your
one
head.
time, yeah. I had some fun.
We got a couple more minutes. I don't know if anybody wanted to ask a few questions on whatever you'd want to know. We'll start in the front row with the cool hat.
For somebody who I personally feel like finding an entrepreneur partner or the fund is always going to be a struggle. If you do have a desire to open in Michigan and also possibly another state, if you would suggest, what is the best way to combat that? And is nano necessarily an easier option? Are there somewhat slightly better regulations, micro?
In the state of Michigan anyway, there's no differentiation between nano and microbrewery. Nano is just a term that some of the breweries use. I like it, he doesn't, so we don't.
Small.
Yeah, small, really small.
But you can combat that by starting, like, we didn't get investors, we didn't get loans, we cash flowed ourselves. And we combated that by starting as small as we could. I mean, that's why, another reason we started so small is because we only had so much money to work with. So we can only buy so much stuff.
And a huge thing that it made all the difference for us, because we would never have made it otherwise, but was that our landlord was willing to work with us. So we signed our contract in April, and we didn't pay a dime until the following January.
The landlord for your space right now?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
We just wrote it in that we didn't start paying rent until we were fully licensed.
Yes, it does seem like a hefty location, very prime.
Yeah.
But it's small, so that
Yeah,
makes
it
it
is
cheap.
very, very small.
But we read a lot of horror stories about smaller breweries actually going out of business if they were stuck in the licensing procedure for a year and a half. You're paying rent for a year and a half before you can even produce a product to sell. So that was huge for us. That basically made them an investor without having to do anything.
Right.
Well, and the number of things that can go wrong between like the start, like launching a business and then officially opening is, I mean,
There's a span of time that you're gonna be absorbing some cost.
Right.
Several months worth, more than likely. And it just depends for me to, it depends on what you wanna do. Like, do you wanna be a small brewery? Do you wanna be a large brewery? I guess you gotta figure out where you wanna start, and then go backwards, and then that'll tell you how much money you're gonna need. For me, I wanna go as big as possible, and I had investors, so I told them, you know, when I put the business plan together, you know, this is what it's gonna cost, this is what I want, can we do it?
Is the business plan essential? I think so.
Oh, yeah, you
You
have to
will-
have a business plan.
You'll learn a lot about what you're gonna do right in the business plan. I mean,
Right.
even if somebody didn't force you to do it, you need to do it.
Yeah, and it might take you a long, it took me a year and a half to write ours.
You'll, what's that?
How was yours different than what experience different?
Well, I'm obviously not as far along as they are, but a lot of the questions she's asking, I'm actually going through now. One thing to look at, you know, you can only go so small with a brewing system and still be profitable. So if I make a little pilot batch, it's a 3-gallon batch just to test stuff at home. That's about a negative 10% margin when I make that batch. If I ramp that same batch up to 3 barrels, I'm at 86% margin. So 86 cents on the dollar is profit if I sell that beer. So you know, you can only go so small and still be profitable. Your labor invested in that is the biggest portion of that. So you know, you're gonna have to pay yourself something. But yeah, as far as, you know, you had a question about raising funds. You know, we've been stuck in that mode for about 3 months now, and it's a challenge. There was a new law that we tried to take advantage of called the mile exemption in Michigan, and it was supposed to be a crowdfunding law. Turns out, not so much. We submitted all the paperwork to Michigan. They needed that about a month in advance. We started in with our fundraise. We're advertising it. They let us get about a month and a half in, and they called us into Lansing and said, stop doing what you're doing. Because the feds never wrote a law. They said the individual states can write a law if they want, which Michigan did. But it has to be an intrastate offer. Well, it was extremely vague. In fact, their comment was, we didn't think anybody would use this law. Well, thanks, you know, we did, and we're pretty invested into it now. But they said, no, you can't advertise at all. You can't say that you're trying to raise money. And so we thought an offer was the details of the offer, not just that there is an ability, you know, to make an investment in a brewery. And they said, no, you can't mention it at all. You have to get them in the door, card them, prove that they're a Michigan resident, and then you can talk to them about a raise, which
Like Fight
was
Club.
ridiculous at that point.
Yeah.
We were like, whatever, okay, we'll start over. So
Yeah.
they knocked us off track for about a month and a half there.
Speaking about the state, so there's no grants available or tax breaks or anything, or you just,
No.
there's nothing?
No.
I heard a rumor that like Arcadia's new facility got a little bit of state
Well,
money.
that was.
Only
that
Only
was a
because
little
it's
bit
a-
different Because they were a brown.
Oh,
Brownfield.
gotcha,
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the site.
Yeah,
Right.
gotcha.
But I tried everything for
Yeah.
8 months,
Right.
nothing.
We even, we're
Zero.
an officially woman-owned business, because it's my business, and still nothing.
My old job in construction, that helps a lot. New
Yeah.
job in brewing, does not matter.
But none.
Yeah.
All the people.
Yeah.
How long between when you started all the billions of sheets of paperwork and you finally got all your licenses?
Well, our experience, and by our experience, I mean ours and probably Gonzo's and everybody that opened before January is gonna be a little bit different than what Brian's going through now, because the laws changed as of January 1st. But ours, we submitted all of our paperwork in February or April? I think we did federal in February, we did state in April, because you have to submit your federal paperwork, then you have to get your city approval, then you go back and you can submit your state paperwork after you got your city approval to brew the beer. So then we submitted all that to the state, but the state won't do anything until you get your federal approval. So before the state does anything, you have to have the city and the federal sign off on it. And
Over 10 months?
right about 10 months.
Didn't the government shut down on you guys at one
Yes,
point?
We-
yes, we were in the
That was
midst
fun.
of the government shutdown, and I worked for the federal government, and I was furloughed, and I'm like, this is awesome. Can't do the business, because everyone's shut down, and I can't do anything, because our place is shut down, so. Yeah, we got in the middle of that, and they also completely changed the way that they're processing all of the paperwork. The TTB used to be the alcohol trade, ATF, yeah. Well, the lady that processed our paperwork for the federal, at the federal level, had never done brewery paperwork before. She was a firearms specialist. So that was awesome. I spent literally hours on the phone with her, walking her through the federal regulations that I was quoting and citing, and explaining to her why we could actually proceed with our license, so that's fun. But she's been through it several times now, so you guys are good to go.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, yeah.
When, in addition to the beer tours, I work at the Gazette and M Live, and so I did a lot of beer reporting up until I started my involvement with the beer tours. But whenever I would contact a brewer to say, so when do you guys, with the $1 million question, so when do you guys think you'll open? It was, well, hopefully October, November or something. And, you know, as I'm hanging up the phone, I added another 6 months on top of that, because no matter how organized they were, there was always something that got in the way. One of the best examples is probably Boatyard Brewing Company, what happened with them. I mean, something as small as an individual person with the local police department cost them more than 3 months of getting their doors open. They had their paperwork filled out, and they had submitted to the local police department, who then signs off on it, sends it to the state. Well, it sat in a desk for more than 3 months, and they were paying rent on the building and things like that. So stuff like that can come up and set you back even more. And sometimes you don't see it coming, because the lawyer had to reach out to them.
You gotta be on top of it all the time, man. You gotta be hounding people, making sure, you just gotta watch all this stuff. It took us 6 months to get our approval. So it went pretty good. It was before the shutdown, so.
Yeah, rub it in.
Ours went relatively not too bad. It's our construction and trying to get approval from the city on stuff that held us back a little bit, but construction always holds you back. I mean, you gotta expect, if you think you're gonna open up, you know, in September, you might as well plan November or something, because construction's always a month or two behind, usually.
Something will sneak up on you, seems like.
We were very naive on the opening date. I think our first business plan has opening in June, July, and it'll be in December. You know, if we just,
6 months, yeah, you got it.
For us, it was only 2 months, so we were gonna open up in September, and it ended up being November 13th, and 13's a lucky number for us.
And there's trouble in the state level too, right? And they downsize so much with some of their people that it all kind of bottlenecks. And so as all these breweries are trying to open, it's all kind of just grinding to a halt.
And the other challenge with the state, and Brian, I don't know if you ran into this or not, but there's no single like website that you can go to that gives you all of your documents. So you think you have your whole packet, and then you're on the phone with them, they're like, oh yeah, you've got everything. Okay, great, you send it in, and then they send back, oh, you forgot this form, this form, this form. Where did you get it? Oh, I forgot to send those to you. So
And sometimes they may not contact you either, right?
Yeah, you
Sometimes
have to constantly contact them. What's the status on this? What's the status on that? So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the state over there.
They've got a lot of other things on their plate. On that route.
You had a question?
Yeah, where do you get like the grains and hops? What is your source?
grains we get, that's hard to get locally. There's a company starting to do it locally, starting to malt their own grains. So we basically get those from, I think most of ours are produced in Wisconsin from Breeze. I piggyback on some of Gonzo's orders actually, because he orders in much larger quantities than we do. So he lets me throw my couple thousand pounds on, I guess he gives a discount. Hops, we get as many of the hops as we can locally from Hotbed Farms. We also are getting a few from a little hop farm down in Baroda, as soon as theirs are ready.
I get all my grain from Breeze, and the hops, I actually helped Hophead Farms start their business 3 years ago. And so I'm very close with them. I volunteered a whole year's worth of my time to help them out grow it, and I helped them build the German machine that decones the cones off the vine, and build them a walk-in cooler, and just did a lot of stuff for them. And actually, I have their logo tattooed on my shoulder. I'm the only one that has a tattoo of their logo, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, I try to use all local hops, and actually we'll probably be doing some of the local grain too in Michigan. You know, to try to stay as local as possible. We want to support Michigan. Let's support everything for Michigan.
So you get it already malted then?
Yep.
Yeah. We also get, on the local side, we get spices, and we put coffee in some of our beers, and we get that from other businesses on the mall. Tudor House Tea and Spices, literally 2 doors down from us on the mall, and Something's Brewing is coffee for the block down. So we try to utilize the other businesses on the mall as much as we can.
It's been one of the neat things in the region to see is what's kind of grown out of all the great beer that these folks are making. There's all the beer dinners that you're seeing popping up, beer cupcakes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tour companies. And we got Andrew from Mission Mobile Canning that does a nice, cool service for breweries.
Yeah,
that
he really
that
gets to
don't-
sit around and drink beer all day.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So then we referenced hotbed farms and everything else like that, so this is becoming an industry that's kind of feeding itself almost, and it's still neighbor supporting neighbor for the most part, and that's one of the more exciting things. It's not often you get business owners sit down with you for an hour and chat about everything they're going through with everything that they've got going on a couple miles away, so that's one of the, for me, one of the most enjoyable parts about watching the Mission Beer Grow, or Kalamazoo Beer Grow for that matter, is meeting some of the cool people and some of the great stuff that they're doing, so it's a lot of fun to watch. So,
I think all your tours have really helped
Yeah.
our business out. It's wonderful bringing in all these people that have never been to our places, and now they get to enjoy some beer and food or whatever, you know, and get to socialize with other people that may have come from Chicago or Wisconsin or Florida or whatever, and they're on these beer tours now having a great time. We're doing the walking tours and stuff. I think that's absolutely
Yeah,
wonderful.
it's always great to get 30 people that are very excited to be there to walk in the door. They're there for one reason, because they like beer.
And I've actually had 150 people in my brewery. That's the largest amount of people I've had in there. It's just, it filled up the whole brewery. Typically, most of the tours are like between the 30 and
yeah,
50,
about that, yeah.
but this one day was 150 people. Just absolutely amazing to have all those people in there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I think we've wrapped it up for the most part. Again, we're gonna run over and grab a quick pint over at Tibbs downtown, right by the State Theater.
Gotta wait for us to unlock the door.
Yeah, right.
Probably not open today.
Yeah.